July 2025, Norman Eli Green is now one of the FBI's 10 most wanted. A warrant has been issued. His face, age progressed and enhanced, is now plastered on every national forest outpost in the southeast. But authorities fear he may already be gone, hiding in the wild, or worse, preparing to begin again. Survivor advocacy groups have issued warnings. Ranger stations are being briefed. And Operation Red Trail has opened a secondary mission: trace the architect. Because if Green started this story, he may be the only one who knows how it ends. In Green's recovered journal, one final entry stood out, written in red ink, jagged and smeared. They think they've seen the face. But the real one's still in the trees. R is still out there. She carries the story now. Maybe she'll bring me back. Rachel read those words with a steady gaze. He's trying to rewrite my ending, she said. But I'm not afraid of the woods anymore. 17 years had passed since Rachel Parker walked out of that forest. But in her dreams, she never really left. The trees were always the same. So was the shadow standing just beyond them. And every time she woke, her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from recognition. It wasn't just a dream. That's what Rachel told Dr. Karen Hoyle, the trauma specialist assigned by Operation Red Trail. Rachel had been asked to revisit her dream journals, a series of notebooks she'd written in secret since 2006. She hadn't opened them in years. But as Hilton's accomplice, Norman Green, took center stage in the investigation, Rachel noticed something she couldn't ignore. Her dreams were lining up with real case details. One entry from 2008 described a woman bound with wire, seated near a fire pit, humming to herself in the dark. In 2025, Agent Lila Warren identified a Jane Doe with matching injuries recovered from a fire ring in Tallulah Gorge. Rachel had no way of knowing that back then. Unless the memory wasn't just a dream. Dr. Hoyle believed Rachel had absorbed more than she realized, possibly witnessed parts of Hilton and Green's actions before her escape. Dissociation is common. So are memory fragments stored as dreams. But one thing unsettled Hoyle: Rachel's entries were not symbolic. They were detailed. The woman in red had a freckle on her cheek. She smiled when the man with the beard gave her water. Then she was gone. Journal entry, November 2007. One cold case: a woman named Dana Wells vanished wearing a red windbreaker in fall 2007. Her remains were discovered in 2021. She had a freckle on her cheek. Her last known photo? Smiling, with a bearded man in a flannel shirt. In the background of every confirmed Hilton crime, there now seemed to be a second set of tracks, small behaviors, patterns, and decisions that felt more calculated than Hilton was capable of. He didn't operate like a classic lone killer, Agent Warren explained. It's like someone was directing the scene behind him. And Rachel? Rachel might have been watching from the wings. One journal entry mentioned a whistle in the trees that made Hilton stop what he was doing and freeze. Another described two sets of footsteps retreating, not one. And then came the entry no one could explain away. He said I wasn't ready, that I had to wait, that the woods weren't finished teaching me yet. Rachel had recently joined a private online support group called The Last Light, a space for survivors of near-death trauma and unsolved crimes. She posted under a pseudonym. On July 5, 2025, she received a private reply to one of her posts about dream memory recovery. The message read, "You weren't the only one who saw. We remember you. So does he." Attached was an image. It was the 1999 sketch of Rachel by the campfire, the one found in Norman Green's storage locker in Montana. But this one was different. The face was older. The hair matched her current style. And across the bottom was scrawled in fresh digital ink, "You still see me in the trees, don't you?" The account had no other activity. It was created that day, traced through a VPN. No linked IP. But the user had posted twice before deleting their profile. Post number 1 was in a hiking forum from 2024. The thread? Safe solo campsites in the Ocala National Forest. Post number 2 was on a survivalist subreddit. The woods teach you things. Sometimes you come back smarter. Sometimes you don't come back at all. Agent Warren feared the worst, that Norman Green wasn't just resurfacing. He was recruiting again. Rachel had become the symbol, the one who got away. And Green seemed obsessed with her, even reshaping his philosophy around her survival. The concern? That someone younger, someone lost, might respond to Green's teachings like Hilton once had. Forensics had recently matched a partial fingerprint found on the inside of Hilton's van door, long believed to be Hilton's alone, to a 19-year-old man arrested in 2022 for trespassing in Florida's Osceola National Forest. His name, Eli Porter. No prior connection to Hilton. No known address. But in his police interview, Eli said something eerie. "I like being out there. You see things. You hear them. They show you who you really are." At the time, it sounded like stoner rambling. It sounded like someone who'd met the second face. As of August 2025, Norman Green remains at large. But something is different now. He's not just running. He's watching again. And maybe building something new. Authorities have launched Operation Ember, a special task force monitoring online forums for behavioral patterns linked to Green's ideology. Rachel has returned to therapy. But she's also requested to speak with potential survivors. To warn them. Monsters don't just kill, she said. They plant things. They grow in other people. I saw that happen once. I won't let it happen again. They called it a coincidence at first. A missing person here. A camper's remains there. But by the time the third hiker vanished in the same 50-mile radius of Ocala National Forest, no one was saying coincidence anymore. Especially not Agent Lila Warren. Because this wasn't random. This was a copy. Only it wasn't Hilton's signature. It was a variation. A distorted echo of a ritual once led by a killer who hadn't been seen in nearly 2 decades, and the whisper behind him, now hunting again. His name was Eli Porter. Eli, the quiet drifter. He'd grown up in group homes. No consistent address. No contact with birth parents. He disappeared from the foster system in 2017 and reappeared in mugshots across 3 states. Petty theft, trespassing, camping without a permit. But there was always a pattern. Every arrest happened near national forests. Every location was linked to Hilton or Green. And every notebook confiscated from Eli's backpack included drawings of trees and faces without eyes. Operation Ember's breakthrough. After Rachel Parker's message from Northtrail 77, Agent Warren requested a rescan of Hilton's digital footprint. A connection was found between Hilton's known burner numbers and a silent forum thread last active in 2022. It was titled, "The Watcher Needs a Voice." Among the few replies, one stood out, a user named Rebirth Among Ash. Warren's tech team linked the alias to Eli Porter's arrest records. The replies were cryptic. "I found his words carved in the trees. The van is gone, but the lessons remain. I'm ready. I've seen her sketch." That last message was posted hours after the Montana sketch of Rachel Parker was leaked online by news outlets. Someone, most likely Green, had sent Eli the call. In April 2025, 31-year-old photographer Lydia Harrow went missing while camping alone in Florida's Juniper Springs area. Weeks later, her camera was found beside a small fire pit, lens smashed, memory card removed. But there was no sign of her body until June, when hikers stumbled on a makeshift shrine deep off trail. Feathers, branches, a red scarf, and a pair of women's hiking boots filled with dried leaves. Inside one boot, a crumpled napkin with these words in black marker. The story never ends. It just changes voices. DNA confirmed Lydia's blood on the cloth. But a new profile emerged from the laces. Eli Porter. A doctrine emerges. Green's teachings weren't just physical. He left beliefs, fragmented philosophies scrawled across cave walls, abandoned cabins, and burned notebooks. The forest doesn't kill. It tests. Blood is memory. Fire is rebirth. Those who pass stay. Those who fail feed. Eli's version? Cruder. Louder. He didn't stage bodies with Hilton's precision. He improvised, sometimes recklessly. But he was escalating, moving from scavenging to hunting. Rachel Parker receives another message. This time, no VPN. No hidden profile. Just a photo left in her email inbox. Her sketch. But this time, a line was drawn through her eyes. Written beneath it. She couldn't see the forest. I will. Rachel collapsed when she saw it. He's not trying to kill like Hilton, she told Agent Warren. He's trying to replace me. Survived. Her name was Dara Lynn, a 25-year-old grad student studying forest ecology. She had been camping alone near Salt Springs when someone lured her away from her tent. She woke up tied to a tree, hands bound, mouth taped. But Eli made a mistake. He waited too long. Dara managed to wriggle free and ran, barefoot, bloodied, and hallucinating, until she flagged down a ranger. Her statement was brief but unforgettable. He said I reminded him of someone. Said it wasn't about me. Said I was a test. Before he walked away, he whispered, "We're almost ready now." Eli Porter's vanished again. As of July 2025, Eli has not been located. But a camera trap in Ocala recently captured a blurred photo of a young man placing a rabbit skull on a tree stump, surrounded by carefully arranged stones. The ritual had changed. More violent, less careful, but unmistakably tied to the doctrine of Norman Green. The recruit is unraveling. Experts believe Eli may be spiraling, trying to live up to a mythology he doesn't fully understand. He's not Hilton. And he's definitely not Green, Agent Warren said. But he's dangerous because he's trying to prove he can be. Inside Dara's recovered tent, which Eli had ransacked before fleeing, forensic teams found something wedged between her sleeping bag and the tent floor. It was a hand-drawn picture of Rachel Parker. This one wasn't a copy. It was done in a new style, rougher, harsher, almost childlike. The date in the corner? July 17, 2025. And the initials beneath it weren't EP. They were ink. Norman Green is back. Not in the shadows. Not as a memory. Physically. Recently. And the most disturbing question isn't where he is. It's who else he's watching. There's a difference between a killer and a prophet. One stops at the body. The other builds a belief system around it. And when Norman Green resurfaced in the summer of 2025, the FBI realized too late. They weren't chasing a man anymore. They were chasing a movement. The drawing wasn't just a threat. Rachel Parker stared at the sketch left in Dara Lynn's tent. It was crude. Not Hilton's style. Not even Eli's. But the initials, NG, weren't for show. They were a signature. The last time Norman Green left behind a drawing, it was 1999. Now, 26 years later, the ink was fresh. And for the first time in nearly 2 decades, the predator in the trees had spoken again. 10 days after Dara Lynn escaped, park rangers found a makeshift campsite on the outskirts of Monongahela National Forest. There was no tent, just branches shaped into an A-frame shelter. Inside, a carved wooden mask with no eyes. A spiral-bound notebook filled with forest sketches and Latin phrases. And a burned piece of canvas with this phrase: "The architect returns not to destroy, but to refine." Dene on the sketches? Norman Green. The architect had returned. And he wasn't hiding anymore. Agent Lila Warren's team compiled every recovered note, journal, and carving linked to Green. Patterns emerged. His belief system, if it could be called that, followed a chilling structure. The story begins with silence. Victims are watched silently for days. Their character is judged. If they are found worthy, they are tested. The trees are witnesses. Green believed forests preserve memory, and that killing within their bounds created sacred knowledge only those with the story could access. There is always one who sees. Green always left one person alive, someone who saw the ritual. Sometimes they escaped. Sometimes he let them go. These survivors, he claimed, were the next voice. Blood ends. Fire begins. Bodies were often mutilated in different ways, but Green's doctrine placed fire at the center. Burning items, trophies, even entire shelters. He called it cleansing the page. The doctrine didn't glorify death. It glorified control over fear, memory, and fate. Eli's body was found 3 weeks later, floating in a creek near the Georgia-South Carolina border. face down. No signs of trauma. But carved into his back, shallow, deliberate, were the words. He saw too much. Nearby, a plastic bag held a drawing of Eli's face. The eyes were gouged out. The initials? Not EP. Not NG. Just a blank square, like a box yet to be checked. Green had discarded his recruit. Because the architect was building something else now. Rachel Parker's breaking point. After Eli's death, Rachel went silent. No media. No therapy. Not even to the FBI. Until one morning, she appeared at the doorstep of Agent Warren's home. No shoes. Hands trembling. I remembered something, she said. Something I didn't want to. Rachel had been 17 the first time she saw Norman Green. She was hiking alone, training for a school fundraiser. Her car had gotten stuck in the mud. A man approached, kind, older, offered to help. Said he was a park volunteer. She declined. He smiled and left. That was 2005. The same year Celeste Moore disappeared. And the same forest. He was grooming me, Rachel said. Even then. The forest was silent. Not peaceful. Not serene. But still, like it was waiting to witness something. Rachel Parker stepped into the clearing just before midnight. In her coat pocket, the broken mirror. In her hand, a flashlight with dying batteries. And in her chest, a heart that hadn't stopped racing since the envelope arrived. She hadn't told Agent Warren. She hadn't called for backup. Because some endings aren't meant to be interrupted. A small fire crackled in the center of a perfectly shaped circle of stones. Around it, branches had been tied to form 9 upright frames, like standing effigies. Each one bore a symbol. She recognized some. A nurse's badge, Cheryl Dunlap. A hiking boot, Meredith Emerson. A feather, a necklace, a red scarf. All 8 victims of the doctrine. But the 9th? It was blank. Waiting. She was already there. Mira Langston stood at the far edge of the fire, wearing a simple brown cloak. Her hair was damp from dew. Her face, calm. Not drugged. Not hypnotized. Believing. You came, she said softly. Rachel stared. Why? Mira looked at the fire. Because I was supposed to. Mira pulled something from her sleeve, a small, hand-bound book. The same one found in Green's previous shrines. She opened it and read. One carries. One watches. One walks. One ends. The bearer of memory must choose. To keep the silence, or to burn it. Then she looked at Rachel. You saw. You survived. He marked you. Rachel shook her head. No. He didn't choose me. Mira tilted her head. Exactly. That was the choice. Mira stepped closer and dropped a match into a pile of herbs at the foot of the 9th effigy. A small flame rose. Then she pulled a wooden mask from her bag, blank, eyeless, smooth. She held it out. This is yours. If you don't take it, I will. Rachel's voice cracked. You think this is sacred? You think this is true? Mira smiled faintly. No. I know it is. Then she stepped into the circle. As the fire grew, Rachel remembered it. The real beginning. She had seen Hilton's eyes, yes, but she had felt Green's presence. Watching. Waiting. Just beyond the trees. The real predator never moved. He let others do the carving. And now Mira had become his new Hilton. Unless Rachel ended it. The mask hovered between them. Firelight danced across its blank face. Mira whispered, "You've always had the voice. You were just afraid to listen." Rachel reached out and took the mask. For a long moment, neither woman moved. Then Rachel turned it around and snapped it in half over her knee. She dropped the pieces into the fire and stepped back. No more carriers. No more doctrine. Mira screamed. No, you don't get to end it. You don't. Rachel pulled the matchbook from her coat, struck one, held it to the effigy, and watched the 9th figure burn. The entire ring lit up, dry wood, old cloth, paper. Each effigy collapsed in turn, as if exhaling. The forest groaned. Somewhere in the trees, an owl called out. And then, silence again. Mira fell to her knees. Rachel stood, breathing hard, watching the flames die. Authorities found the site the next morning. Rachel walked out alone, covered in ash, the broken mirror still in her pocket. Mira Langston was arrested at the edge of the highway, muttering doctrine phrases to herself. Her trial would later reveal full indoctrination. She would plead guilty to conspiracy and symbolic terrorism. She would never mention Norman Green by name, because the architect, by then, had vanished again. There was never a blank face. There was always someone behind it. I saw him once. That was enough. He'll wait. He always waits. But this time I told the story first. Somewhere deep in the Apalachicola forest, a hand places a new mask on a mossy stump. A voice, no older horse, mutters. The fire purifies. But the story still breathes. He turns, disappearing into the woods. And behind him, the mask begins to smolder in the sunrise.